Well, Netflix just unveiled their latest race swap character. It's not Cleopatra. I think this is arguably worse. So they're releasing this limited series called Adolescence, and I just want to go through the synopsis. A crime drama series that centers around Jack Thorne, that's not the name of the character. The character is Jamie Miller, a 13-year-old boy who is arrested for murdering his classmate. It delves into themes of toxic masculinity and the pressures faced by young men today. His family, therapist, and detective in charge are left questioning what really happened after the murder of his classmate, Katie Leonard. And a lot of people are praising this for its cinematography. They're filming each episode in a continuous shot, or at least what looks like one. That's not really the point, though. People are wondering if this is based on a true story, and if it is, it's a blatant race swap and an anti-white one at that. Based on the case of Hassan Sentamu in South London, who stabbed 15-year-old Eliane Ndam in September 2023. Mm-hmm. Hassan Sentamu was sentenced to a minimum of 23 years for that murder, and he was sentenced at the age of 18, but was 17 at the time of the crime. And allegedly, this is one of several knife crimes in the UK that ultimately inspired the creation of this show, Adolescence, and all of its themes about what might be motivating these young boys to commit such heinous attacks.
One thing that would be good to point out, just from the 30,000-foot view, is people are calling it a race swap, which makes them think specifically that they kept name. I'm not saying they're saying this, but yeah. The way that's being put into your head from the people criticizing this, though there is plenty of things to criticize, they're making it seem like they took the name of the person who did the crime and then just made him a different race. That's not what this is. Yeah. The character, which is a new name, was inspired by specific crimes. They just simply chose a white actor. And it is a race swap. It's just not the one-to-one thing that you're thinking of. I'm just trying to make that clear.
So I looked into this, and a specific interview they did with Stephen Graham, who is a showrunner and also stars in the show as 13-year-old's dad.
Well, that's just presumptuous, right?
So is Adolescence based on a true story? While Jamie's story specifically isn't based on a real person or event, the idea for the series sprung from reports that Stephen Graham heard about on the news of young boys involved in knife crimes. There was an incident where a young boy allegedly stabbed a girl. It shocked me. I was thinking, what's going on? What's happening in society where a boy stabs a girl to death? What's the inciting incident here? And then it happened again, and it happened again, and it happened again. And I really just wanted to shine a light on it and ask, why is this happening today? What's going on? How have we come to this? And then in a separate interview, Stephen Graham says, you look at it and you see that we're all kind of accountable to an extent. There's failings within the school system. There are situations where the education system can look at this. Look at what's happened with that kind of rise in misogynistic tendencies. He also says that he hopes this show is going to start a conversation, cause discussion, and make change in Parliament in the UK, and specifically focused on social media's toxic influence and the manosphere. Which brings us to the ridiculous references that were made in the trailer, which I'd like to show for context.
There it is. Here we go.
Police! What are you looking for? You're making a big mistake. He's only a kid.
Dad, I haven't done anything.
He's a good kid. Jamie, I want you to listen carefully.
What's going on?
I'm going to start off with asking you.
Do you know a girl called Katie Leonard? Yeah? Describe each other as friends, then.
Is she dead, then?
Why would you ask her?
Well, you're at a police station.
So do you think it would be okay if we speak about it? I haven't done anything. You're a good dad, a great dad.
He hasn't been found guilty. He's been accused. What have you done?
Banged by a girl, you sausage.
You're not getting it.
What am I not getting?
Dad, you're not reading what they're doing. It's a call to action by the manosphere. 80% of women are attracted to 20% of men. You must trick them because you'll never get them in a normal way.
We've done nothing wrong, have we? Hey!
Look at me now!
It's crazy what your brain tells you to do when you're a kid.
So
Okay.
I don't know who that character was, but one of the characters in that trailer says that this murder is a call to action for the manosphere. The fact that you're using the term manosphere in the show completely makes me check out. I'm not interested anymore. It's so chronically online.
It takes like 2 rewrites to find something more layered than that.
Yeah, we have a 20 from Dreamcast Night. This guy is giving big reading chair energy. The story is lame. They want to tell a story about a crime, but they don't have the guts to tell the real story. So they use the crime as a club to bludgeon a group not involved. Exactly. So, like, let's call a spade a spade. There is a knife crime epidemic in the UK, largely because of criminality from immigrants or people directly descended from immigrants. So if we're talking about Hassan Satamu specifically, I looked into that case a little bit. So Satamu had a history of attacking girls and carrying knives. He killed 15-year-old Eliane Andam in a frenzied attack. The trigger for the attack was a dispute over a teddy bear, and Eliane had stood up for her friend to retrieve it from Satamu. He was arrested after the incident, found guilty of murder and possession of a knife after a jury rejected his claim that his autism affected his ability to exercise self-control. And Sentamu's ex-girlfriend described his demeanor as similar to a character from the crime drama Top Boy and realized something was wrong when he turned up wearing gloves and a mask. Sentamu's lawyer explained that his violent streak and anger stemmed from his troubled childhood, which included fleeing Uganda from domestic abuse and spending time in foster care. So we know that this is a refugee from a low-trust society in a third-world country, and that's generally the profile of people committing these attacks, including also Axel Rudakabana, who was guilty of the Southport stabbings of little girls attending a Taylor Swift-themed dance class in 2024. Similar story also inspired this show, when it has nothing to do with incel forums and the manosphere and everything to do with migrant crime. Alejandro Reyes said, I caught up on the stream yesterday right after you finished. Also, I think we can all agree Britain is beyond hope.
Would this, would your opinions on this be different if the director had not made any allusions to what he was making it about? It's not like there haven't been stories in the past about evil kids, or at least Criminal Minds had more than a few episodes with kids that end up being psychopaths and stuff like that. And it was not, there was no racial component. But the second he mentions, knife crimes in the UK, anybody who's paying attention to the news knows that the shift would have been nothing to do with the manosphere and everything to do with what immigration reform looks like going on there. So if the director hadn't said anything about that and it was just a story, and okay, actually I have to rephrase. Either way, you're going to criticize it because including the word manosphere is extremely lame and extremely ham-fisted.
Yes.
So it comes off extremely stupid. But then the discussion would just be about look at this ham-fisted version of propaganda as opposed to look at this ham-fisted version of propaganda that's not connected to the other thing that they claim it's about. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if he had just kept his mouth shut and not talked about that and said, we wanted to explore how misogynistic radicalization is showing itself in the UK, we would all roll our eyes, but it would be a completely different discussion.
Right. Yeah. I think they should have kept their mouths shut.
And they don't, like, I don't, obviously, I haven't seen the show, but they don't have any self-awareness either. Like, all of this, the quote-unquote misogynistic blah blah blah, this is a reaction to an entirely feminist, basically, society.
And then the dad was crying next to him in the in the interrogation room.
Just the perfect time.
It's always at the perfect time.
We're talking about serious things, and it's ridiculous.
Okay.
So anyway, murder.
But the point is, like, we've had, decades and decades and decades of actual, essentially telling young men that they're the worst, they're the biggest problem society has, et cetera, et cetera. And now there are young men, not just in the United States, which is it's clear that it's happening in the United States, but it's happening all over the world. Men are moving away from leftist ideas. That's because the left has nothing for young men. They only demonize them. They treat them like garbage. They have absolutely nothing good to say about young men. I mean, look at what's going on with that Harry Sisson guy. Not like I'm pro Harry, but like, he does dumb things that young guys do, right? And I'm not, he was lying to women to get nudes, which is kind of a scummy move. But the whole Democrat establishment immediately tosses him under the bus for doing a dumb thing that young guys do. This kind of stuff is entirely predictable, and making movies like this, especially in the context of the UK, which is extremely left-leaning, is even more left-leaning than the United States. It's terrible for young men. It's terrible for relations between men and women, and it's terrible for the future of Western society, honestly. Not that this is going to destroy Western society on its own, but that is the situation. That's the reality that we live in,
Well, it's not just anti-male. I think it's specifically anti-white male.
In America, the American version of this, if they were to do it, would be to take inspiration from the Catholic school shootings last year and making it just a Catholic white guy that shot the white kid that shot up the school.
You mean the one that identified as trans?
Yes. Yeah. It would be like taking that story as inspiration and turning it around.
About male rage, just because the shooter was female but identified as male, right? Yeah, they say the showrunners and the director grew fascinated by the question of male rage and started thinking about themselves as men, fathers, partners, and friends, and questioning with intensity who they were as people, particularly as men. Thorne says, that is a journey I've never gone on as a writer before, and scared me and excited me because it felt like we had something to say. You have nothing of value to offer.
The sad thing is there's a world of interesting stories to tell that just will never be touched.
Yeah.
Because it's not socially acceptable to touch them.
They could have just presented this as a story they made up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Instead of referring to this as
a
conversation starter for Parliament to enact policies around incel forums or something.
It's like that. What was that? The episode of like The Good Doctor that we watched with the guy who was
the incel killer.
That writing is more ham-fisted and to be expected when you watch network TV and they've got to fill 22 episodes a year, and some writers like, I read this freaking article in Axios, like this is kind of interesting, and then they're like, oh yeah, incels, put that in the script.
Yeah. This is more calculated.
Yes.
For sure.
But just as ham-fisted. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.